Well, good morning, everybody. Daylight savings time officially just hit. It is March 14th. So it feels like 9:30 in the morning, but it's already 10:30. I dislike that immensely about daylight savings time, but there are things in my life that are in my control and things that are not, and what time it is ain't one of them. So, we're going to get going in the garden today. I'll show you what we've been doing all weekend long, coming up next. So, if we're just meeting, my name is Zach, and this is KT Outdoors, where we like to share what we have learned over the years about building epic soil that will ultimately grow the food that will feed your body and your soul, all while saving you and your family money in the process. So, it's early spring, daylight savings time just kicked off. We've had a busy weekend. I'm going to jump to some footage that I did yesterday of things that we've been doing so far, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you what I have planned for today. Okay, so March 13th. Day's not over yet, we're still going. But what have we been doing today? So this is the second weekend in March, and I am in full-blown bed prep mode. Like, these beds have all been raked. They need to be weeded still, but I've raked them, I've watered them, just trying to get the soil to heat back up some. So bed prepping. We're also bed prepping out front over here in the raised beds. They've settled quite a bit and the soil level has dropped, so we need to start to fill them back up. So the first thing I hit them with was a mixture of soil pep and just the dirt from the chicken run behind the winter greenhouse chicken house thing that we use. So it's pretty fresh, like there's definitely fresh chicken manure in that soil. And so by mixing it with that soil pep, which is just shredded up bark, they call it composted forest products. It's basically chunky sawdust. My hope is that that will give the nitrogen from the chicken manure somewhere to bind in all of that, basically carbon bark shred stuff. So I'll get some footage on the next round of that for all of us to see. But yeah, so beds are getting prepped and filled. We've got the seedlings started, obviously. Pruning is in order for certain things, so I'm starting to think about shaping up fruit trees and things. I should have done it already because I should have done it when they were dormant, and now they're starting to break dormancy. So I'm going to do some research and see whether or not I should continue to prune them. I think it's questionable, but at the same time, lots of people prune trees this time of year, so maybe it won't kill them, which is really the only thing that matters, is that they don't die. So we might end up doing some of that. Yard's going to need to be fertilized here eventually, but that's not really on my list. Honestly, that's what I've been doing. That's it. Like bed prepping, seed starting, and mulching, because I want to preserve the moisture that's in this soil behind me, because it's wet right now. It's springtime, and if I wait until it's drier, then it'll just take more water to get the mulch to hold. Not to mention the fact that the weeds are already starting to try to do their thing, and so by getting a layer of mulch down right away, I have less of a weed issue, and the weeds that I do have to pull will come out easier because they will have fought through such a thick layer of mulch that it'll be easy to take the tops off of them, and they'll keep having to fight up through that mulch, and that should weaken them out enough that we can kind of keep them in control. So the biggest reason why those are the only things I've done, the bed prep, the mulching, and the other thing, I've been doing a ton of composting, mostly because I'm cleaning up these beds, right? And so that creates a big mess of debris and leftovers and stuff that will make epic compost, and I want more epic compost. So I have a massive pile up in the summer chicken run started with all of the yard debris and the garden debris from down here that was just kind of marinating all winter long. I've got the regular pile down in the food forest going. So it got hot when I turned it and repiled everything, and now it's the temperature's back down, so it needs to be turned again. But compost, compost, compost. Like, use everything up. Don't try to waste anything. And I don't really have anything. I've been hesitant to put stuff in the beds just because the weather has been so still cold. Like, we've had some nights that got down into like high 20s, and even inside my seed starting greenhouse, plants that weren't protected with some either heat mat or heat lamps or something to try to keep them warm, they froze. Like, the soil blocks were frozen. So it's still been cold. I'm really pushing the envelope this year, but things are starting to grow. The holdover cilantro's starting to grow. I don't know what that's going to do. Never had that happen before. The garlic is starting to pop through that we planted last year. We've got a couple of the kale plants survived, and they're trying. That's really bad light. A couple of the kale plants survived, and they're trying to do their thing. So, yeah. It's time to get ready. I think this is the hardest time of year, quite honestly, because it's freaking gorgeous out here today. It's like, feels like 70. Like, my legs get hot in these pants because the sun's hitting them. So it totally makes it feel like it's go time, especially this space over here, because this is the first year. Like, this time last year, this was still covered in black plastic. Like, we weren't even thinking about growing yet because we hadn't even built it. And so this is the first year that this infrastructure here in the formal garden and all of those beds up there behind it, it's the first year that that's been in place for early spring. So it's been exciting, but I'm doing my best to keep myself in check, because I'm going to put those seedlings out there and they're going to die if we have a cold snap. So I got to make sure I have protection figured out. But yeah, we're getting close, people. Ooh, I love this weather. That's honestly been one of the things about this no-dig approach that I'm kind of adopting. Like, the first year I really dug them in. Like, we tilled, we did the whole nine, we put lots of amendments in the ground and really broke up that soil. But then we covered it all with a layer of compost, and I'm not touching it at all because I don't want to mess with it. And, you know, my father-in-law's a farmer. They cannot get out in the fields yet because it's still too wet, it's still too cold, and it's just not going to work good for them. Look at how much this compost pile settled. Isn't that crazy? I'm sure there's compost in there, but it was full to here. Like, I'll put the picture here. Like, it was full to there. It's sunk. That's a full-blown foot of sinkage as that pile has compressed itself down. Anyway, it's too early for farmers to be getting out into their fields. They want to, especially on weekends like this when it feels nice, but it's just not quite ready yet. But a no-dig bed in your garden is totally ready, because all you got to do is rake stuff off the top, maybe, and put more compost on, and you're going. Okay, so I'm down here in the raised bed formal garden because this is where a lot's going to happen today, right? Like, this thing is scheduled in my garden planner, which, if you haven't seen the information in the garden planner, I'll put a little link right up there so you can go and check that out if you're interested. But I'm scheduled to plant like within the next 14 days, I would say. Like, spring break is not this week but next week, and I'm kind of roughly planning on like middle to late spring break, so that like March 20th to 25th range, somewhere in there, I'm going to get out here and really get going. So what I'm trying to do in these raised beds is get everything cleaned up and cleared out and top them all off with fresh soil so that the sun can start warming them up over the next few days. If we get any rain, it can start to kind of get things hydrated, and then our gardens will be able to hit the ground rocking and rolling because everything will be ready. It's one of the main benefits of this no-dig approach that we've been talking about in the footage you just watched. There's not a lot to prep on the soil. You literally just put more on top of it, and then you're ready to go. So any residual plant material that's out here, like there's some beets over here in one of these beds right there that have been there all winter long. They need to come out and get composted. any of the herbs that didn't make it through the winter, they need to come out and get composted. Strawberry leaves from over here in the strawberry bed, all that needs to get trimmed back. I might actually hold off a little bit on that because I don't need to really prep the soil very much there. And all of those dead leaves are providing a little bit of an insulation to cold weather and these cold mornings that we've been having. But hopefully we're through most of the frosting. I think lows are in the mid to high 30s, maybe even the 40s over the next 10 days. So we're on a bit of a warming trend right now. I know it won't last, so I'm being careful, but yeah, so that's why I might leave those strawberry leaves for now. The other thing we need to finish up today is this mulching project that's been going on here in the background. So we got most of it mulched, but I ran out of mulch. I had to go down and get some more. But I got more hay and more straw, so we'll continue to mulch out this formal raised bed up here and get all of that system in place so that we can start the fight with the weeds with a bit of an advantage, because there's going to be weeds here. That's one of the problems with this no-dig approach, is that it's not really a problem. It's just something you need to be aware of, I think, more than anything. There's going to be weeds. There's weeds in this yard space that used to be where we pastured the rabbits, basically, that they're just here. They're perennial weeds. They're going to be here, and you're going to have to deal with them. And mulching is one of the best ways I found to do that. Not to mention, here in the high desert climate, it helps us retain soil moisture through the heat of the summer. So it's kind of a double benefit in that way, that it helps us with the water issues that will plague us later in the summer, and it helps us with the weed issues all year long. So win-win. I love mulch. Mulch is key. Another thing that's very much on the agenda today is all of these seedlings. We've got lettuce, broccolis, arugulas, some spinach, some kales, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, some of it needs to be potted up, particularly we've got some tomatoes and peppers in the house, and the tomatoes are getting pretty leggy. So we need to get them into a better pot system. So if we can have some time later today, we'll get to that and get them potted in. But more than anything, what really needs to happen for these guys today, probably after they set out in the sun all day and sort of dry out some, is they're going to need some fertilizer. Their first true leaves are starting to show now. Like if you look at some of these lettuce plants, I'm going to bring it down here. They're starting to get, that's a true leaf. Whoops. That's a true leaf right there versus these seed leaves on the edge. And so when you start to see these true leaves begin to form, it's time to start thinking about hitting them with some fertilizer. So we'll be mixing up some really dilute fertilizer. I'll have to look around and see what I have. If nothing else, I've got some fish fertilizer, and we'll just hit them with a little bit of this, half strength. So we might do like 1 or 2 teaspoons for a whole gallon. Like we won't put hardly any at all in there, because we'll just want to just give them a nice little shot of something so they have some nutrition to grow, because the peat moss and cocoa coir, along with the vermiculite that's making up the seed starting mix, has no fertility whatsoever. So everything that we see growth wise right now is stored energy that was in the seed and a little bit from maybe photosynthesis, but now they need some food, they need some fuel, and so we'll hit them with a little bit of fertilizer until we can get them transplanted out into a potting soil mix that will have some of its own fertility mixed in with it. Well, that's all we have for this one, guys. I hope that wherever you are, your garden plans are underway and things are going exactly the way you hoped for. And that if you were lucky enough to have some beautiful weather like we had here this last weekend, I hope you were able to get outside and enjoy it, because we all know life's better when it's lived outdoors. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.